Dr. Jazz.
We actually played on the same gig, which was, I think, when COVID hit, you were with Dejan Terzic's band in Ljubljana, and I think I was with one band also there. Uh, and then the COVID hit, actually. So I think that was like 220. So
That was crazy. Yeah, that was the tour where it was all coming in. I remember getting off the plane in Banja Luka, maybe?
Probably, yeah.
In Banja Luka, and everyone had to make a line on the runway, and they were taking our temperature. And it all looked very dystopian. And now it's something that you're kind of used to, you know?
Yeah.
Now machines take your temperature automatically.
Yeah, it's bizarre times.
Like body heat surveillance. It's wild. Yeah. But that tour was we were in the north of Italy, and all the gigs got cancelled. We just managed to make a recording, and then we just left.
Yeah.
And never came back.
No, but Matt, I'll just otherwise jump in because since we don't have so much time.
Sure.
Oh, I just get quite a strong feedback of my own voice somehow. Although now it's okay. Let me see. Oh, no, it's okay. No, it's gone. Oh, now it's super. Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, it's okay. All of a sudden. Yep. But I wanted to start with this talk with you as a band leader. You know, I was also on Fresh Sound, like in the beginning of the 2000s, and like the Unquiet and the Catch one. They're like classics almost, and the last one, Good Question, as well, is an amazing album. Like, have you been working on something new as a band leader, or what's happening on that department, considering you're like ultra busy as a sideman, man?
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for checking those out. Yeah, I mean, it's there's quite, as you can see, there's quite a big gap between each record. Yeah, so I tend to kind of write music in batches, you know, and being busy playing with many different projects, and you know, being a parent as well, as you know, kind of it takes away some of your time. So, you know, I these days I'm kind of like, okay, I'm gonna squirrel myself away for 2 weeks, and I'm gonna write some music, and it's like I'm kind of doing it with intention. So hopefully that happens in the near future, and I'll make another record. Although I could well make another record under my own name that is not my original music as well. That's also something I'm thinking about doing, which I think would be a lot of fun. So that's probably the most likely thing to happen is I do an album of other people's music that I like.
Interesting.
Because most of the music that I like is by other people.
Come on. You're a monster composer, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of get you, because when I listen to your music, it's very complex, at least like, you know, rhythmically and harmonically. Like the last one on Good Question, there's some heavy shit there. Like how do you write music when you do it? I mean, what's your approach like when you approach a tune? Like, I try to figure out some of the structures, like Small Famous or stuff like that, and I'm like, what's going on there? It's quite some tricky stuff there.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to keep myself entertained, pretty much, you know. I'm just trying to write stuff that I really like, and that I think is interesting, and that, you know, that I also think that it has, like, you know, it's got some soul. So no particular method, but often I'll just take an idea, and I'll see where it can go, you know, see what I can do with it, develop it, see if it turns into something that, you know, has a narrative.
Mm.
See if it has, you know, if it has potential, and if it goes somewhere that I like that it goes, somewhere it doesn't, it just stops, and then, you know, I'll throw it out. But I have a lot of voice memos. You know, I think this is pretty common amongst people that write. I have a lot of voice memos of ideas from my voice, whether I'm on the subway or in the car or at the piano. Most of the time at the piano, sometimes at the bass. And, you know, it's just like, okay, this is cool. I like this. Let's revisit it in whenever, you know, and then I'll have some time, and I'll go back and I'll come through and I'll see if anything has potential. And then you're just trying to connect dots, and let's see if the next thing that you write that comes from that is also something that you like. And then, you know, can you solve the puzzle? Can you make a tune? And then can that tune, you know, is it good for improvising? You know, sometimes it's not. So, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't play it, but, you know, maybe you're just not going to have any solos on it or something like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I try and keep it different every time. But it's just following paths of curiosity, and like I said, trying to keep myself entertained.
Mm.
You know,
yeah,
like a game.
Yeah.
Like a game. Yeah.
Where does this love for the odd meters also come for you? I mean, and also this fluidity that, I mean, when I listen to you play with anyone, actually, it's like, you know, it's like Dave Holland. When I listen to him playing odd meters, it sounds so effortless. And you are the same. Like, where does this come from with your playing and composing, actually?
Yeah, well, I think I was attracted to odd meters because it kind of affords you different phrasing and different cadences. But at the same time, I want it to sound really natural, and I don't want it to sound odd. And I don't want it to sound difficult, because I don't really like music that sounds difficult, even though sometimes it is difficult to play. So yeah, like, also like listening to Dave Holland, you know, like, I really liked how he's kind of seemed at home with these things that these kind of milieus that he made for himself. And yeah, my approach is just like, let's try and see how kind of flowing and naturally we can play a meter like that, without it sounding like jerky and janky, because you know, what's the point of that? Yeah. So yeah, I think what I'm really trying to do is, you know, always have it groove and always make it sound natural. And you know, I think these days, I mean, people play odd meters like it's nothing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So it's really kind of progressed, and it's kind of cool, you know. It's kind of cool how much that kind of rhythmic side of things has developed in the you know, in the jazz world. It's great. Still, sometimes it's like, you know, why does that tune have to sound? Why does it have to be in that meter? You know, like, sometimes people take something in 4/4 and then they'll put it in an odd meter, and maybe it wasn't the best idea. I don't know.
Yeah,
Questions of
taste. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's true, like you said. Yeah, the odd meters went, you know, through the roof. It's like in the 80s, Dave, I don't know, something played in 7, and it was like, man, okay. And now it's just like this enormous structures and 16th, you know, 13, blah, blah, blah going. It's crazy, man. It's really where it's gone.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. I mean, you know, harmonically, there wasn't too many places to go. Rhythmically, there was a lot of terra incognita, you know.
Yeah,
a lot to explore. So, you know, people will explore it, you know, if it's there, and then crazy people take it, take it as far as it'll go, and yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting world. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. What was for you? I mean, we mentioned Dave Holland before, like, but what was for you, like? I know you're from New Zealand, and I think Mike Knock is from New Zealand, right? He's the only.
he is.
He's the
He
only
is, yeah.
New Zealandish musician I know, actually. But how was it for you, like entering the jazz world? Was there a moment? When did you hear it first time, or why the bass, also jazz bass?
Yeah, well, I think like a lot of people, I kind of got into it in like high school, and I was really lucky to have a very switched on music teacher, who I was playing bass, but I was kind of more in like the rock and funk world. I was playing electric bass, and he kind of corralled me and was like, "You're going to play in the jazz band, and here are some records, check them out." Just classic stuff, Blue Train and Oscar Peterson and all this stuff. Like really, he actually gave me the records to go home and listen to, and kind of got me hooked, and made sure that I kind of came to rehearsals, and then the guys in the band were like, you got to play the upright, otherwise you might get kicked out of the band. I was like, oh no, now I got to play so I had to play this terrible, like big double bass that they had at the school, and eventually like that, I kind of preferred that to like the electric thing. Even though, I started on electric bass and I love it. And it's definitely like part of my playing, comes from like electric bass and electric bass music. Eventually I just was like hooked on the kind of a throbbing sound of a big wooden acoustic bass, and and I had good guys to play with growing up, guys of my own age who were crazy about the music, like very very small little peer group that I had, but enough to like feed each other until it was time to like go further afield, and then I went to Boston and Berkeley and New York and that kind of thing. But I think growing up in a small place like New Zealand, I realized that to kind of follow the music, I needed to kind of I made the decision pretty early to leave, rather than kind of hanging around a long time and getting married and that kind of thing.
Did actual artists come to New Zealand, like from the States, to jazz musicians, or
Man, they'd really like to. I tell you, I can't tell you.
It's an amazing place. I mean, it's like
the number of people who are like, we played in Australia, and we were going to go to New Zealand, and then at the last minute it got cancelled. This happens all the time because it has the double whammy of being like very far away and not having many people that can potentially buy tickets. So if you get to go, it's lucky. It's an opportunity. So really not a lot of people go there and tour there. It's a long way out. Yeah. It's a really long way out. So like growing up there, you don't have the opportunity to see many like American, European acts. You're basically just like checking out, or when I was growing up, you're checking out recordings. But now these days, everything's, everyone has the same kind of access to things online. So that kind of levels the playing field in one way. But it's also kind of nice like that, because you end up having these recordings that you like obsess over, and they become like Bibles. And I think checking out stuff deeply is the way to learn, So it wasn't like a diverse musical experience. It was just kind of like concentrated and deep. However, saying that, anyone who gets the opportunity to go should really grab it, or
Oh,
even like if you're in Australia, like try and pop across the Tasman Sea, because it's a special place, you know.
Yeah. Do you still go there, by the way?
Yeah, when I can. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just there in February.
Okay.
With my family, had a good vacation, played a couple of nice concerts with some friends from out there. It was great. It's, yeah, it was soulful experience for sure. Yeah, it's kind of like it's like the Slovenia of the South Pacific, you know.
Yeah, we have the sea, the mountains, everything, man. Yeah, it's like it's true. It's
You got to see the mountains, but also you guys are like the you guys are like the small country by the bigger countries, right?
yeah, yeah, it's true.
Like, and then you've got the Serbs, and they're all like loud and energetic, and the Slovenians are kind of like, yeah, more laid back. You know, that's like us and the Australians, you know.
Interesting, yeah, but true.
Or the
Yeah,
Canadians and the Americans,
yeah.
or the Portuguese and the Spanish, you know. Yeah,
It's on the to-go list.
South Pacific.
It's like a tourist show this now. Like
Yeah.
people go to New Zealand and Slovenia, you know, it's like
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Slovenian wines,
Oh,
Slovenian wines, New Zealand wines, that would be a good tasting side by side.
man, I live in a wine region here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the hills here, so it's like, yeah, beautiful white
Nice.
wines, man.
I'm coming to visit.
Oh man, we have a guest room. Come wherever. We'll make a round in the wineries. But
Awesome.
Matt, I wanted to ask you, like, how was it then for you when you went to the States? You know, especially to Berkeley, coming from like this small circle in New Zealand, and then how was that like for you? I mean, your generation of musicians is incredible, of course, and what were the first connections also that you made? And then when did you move to New York? How was that like also for you?
Yeah, well, so coming from a place like New Zealand, and then landing in Boston and at Berkeley, like you're kind of amazed, because from being like one of very few people that do what you do, all of a sudden you're in this world where there's a lot of people that are interested in the same stuff. So it's amazing. It's like, oh my God, there's like 7 drummers that I would like to play with. You know, before there was one, and then all of a sudden you start seeing, you know, the diversity of musical experience that is possible, and you meet people from all around the world, and you know, your whole kind of worldview and musical worldview opens up. It's pretty, it was pretty it made an impression for sure. And yeah, so I was at Berkeley. I mean, the people that I met at Berkeley, you know, some of them I still pretty tight with now. But after a year, I was kind of impatient, and I was like, well, this is great. But I've heard that down the road, there's even more stuff, you know. So after a year, I moved to New York, and also I'd like run out of money. I had like no more money after 9 months.
Yeah, I can't believe. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, what's a good thing to do when you've got absolutely no money? New York City, good choice. And so, you know, I went there at 20, the age of 20, and
Wow.
and then you get to New York and you realize, like, oh wow, there's really nowhere else to go. You know, this is like there are so many great musicians here. So, you know, that's where I've been like for the last almost 30 years, just kind of learning and finding people that I like to play with. And you know, I'll be here for a little while longer. It's just this constant
Yeah.
like renewing of the scene. There's constant talent kind of coming in, and it's stimulating, to say the least.
Oh, that's an understatement. But yeah, definitely. Yeah. How was it like for you in New York when you came there, or who were the first connections or the gigs that you got actually?
Well, I mean, I would say, when I got here, I would think I was still really learning, to play, to be honest. So in terms of making connections, I had people that I knew from school and from New Zealand, and we would just play sessions and the occasional gig. But eventually, you just play more and more with more and more different people. I remember I would do a lot of sessions at this piano player David Berkman's house, and through him, I remember playing for the first time with Jeff Ballard, Adam Cruz. I'd play with let's see, Chris Cheek, who I guess I met through other kind of Berkeley connections, and through him I met like Kurt Rosenwinkel, played with for the first time, and Jorge Rossi and people like that. Seamus Blake, these guys were like a little older than me.
Yeah.
Mark Miralto. And just like doing sessions, and eventually, people think you sound good enough to get you on a gig, and from there, just kind of you meet more and more, more and more different people. Through those guys, I started playing with the singer Rebecca Martin.
Oh yeah.
Dan Rieser, Steve Cardenas. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking like
branching out, and
branching all the things together. Mark Turner. There were lots of gigs. I mean, New York in the 90s was kind of fun.
Everyone says that. Yeah,
great music. Yeah. I started playing with Sam Yahal back then as well. I think in the very late 90s, but I used to go see him play with Brian Blade down at Smalls. Let's see. Yeah, so I got to do some playing with him. Yeah, it was fun. Kurt Rosenwinkel's band was playing. They sounded amazing, I remember like going and seeing Avishai Cohen play, the bass player. He was awesome. Omer Avital as well had his bands happening. Guillermo Klein's like bigger ensembles.
Yeah, I love those groups, man.
Some of that music too. Yeah. Like late 90s, early 2000s. I started to like play music that I really liked, and I guess I did my first record in 2000 and 2001, and that's kind of a reflection of like all that stuff that I was listening to, and all those musicians that I really like enjoyed listening to, and was starting to play with. So and also, at that age, you're just kind of like hanging out. You're like going and checking out all the different music every night, and then waking up the next morning and processing it, and being influenced by it and being inspired by it, and I think that first record of mine is definitely like influenced by all those things.
How did that connection for the Unquiet with Jordi and Fresh Sound happen? And
probably, let me see, I gotta think. I played on a Chris Cheek recording, which was a Fresh Sound
yeah.
record called Vine.
Oh yeah, with Kurt.
In
Yeah,
1999. Yeah, Kurt is on it, and
that's a great record too.
Brad Melton on it, and Jorge is on it, and then we did some gigs in Spain, and I met Jordi then, and we went swimming, and he was like, "Oh, you should do a record for us." So I did.
Yeah, it's a great track. I love that record.
That's what I remember.
That's a nice record.
Yeah. Thank you. That was recorded just like 3 months after 9/11, actually.
Oh shit! Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you
Crazy times.
play gigs with that band also prior, or did you just go straight into the studio? Or
Straight into the studio.
oh,
Yeah.
really? Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we played like a couple of CD release gigs, and that was it. I mean, that music has been played a bit since then, and some other random gigs of mine, but by different people, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was never going to put that on the road, you know. It was like it was this studio project, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I love the tunes on that one. It's some really cool tunes. I listened. I have a CD actually. I bought it back then, and like Tree Hugger and what Keepsake or something like those tunes. I love those tunes. It's beautiful music.
Thank you.
Yeah, really nice composition.
Yeah.
Who was actually the first guy you went to Europe with as a sideman when you were in New York?
Wow. First time to Europe. That is a good.
That's a tough question.
I've been like so many times.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's a very I honestly don't know. I'd have to check back my old like diary notebooks and see.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went to Europe, but that was a funny band from Berkeley, and we went and we just played around Switzerland, played some random gigs. That was hilarious. No, I mean I go to Europe like 7-8 times a year.
Yeah, I know.
Like
it's incredible.
years.
Yeah. Fantastic. How do you stay fresh on the road, by the way? You know, playing the double bass, it's quite physical. And how do you keep it fresh mentally and physically, actually, when playing so much?
Yeah, that's a good question. I try to exercise and you know, and try and like just try and feel good and eat well, and you know, I try and kind of treat myself well, you know, try and stay in a good mood, and then that will help with the music. And then, you know, it depends on if I have my bass with me, then I'm able to share it, you know. But sometimes it's the bass du jour, and you can't practice. But then when you actually get to the gig, it's kind of like it's a fresh experience, and you have that to kind of embrace. Or at least you better embrace it. Otherwise, you're just going to be really dark about the bass that they gave you. So you know, that's my attitude with playing like a different instrument every night. It's like, okay, well, let's see what I got today. Let's see what we can do with it. But but yeah, I mean, a lot of being on the road is like just trying to keep it together physically, because it can be really grueling, you know, when you're no longer 25 years old, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like I watch what I eat, you know, and I try and go for a run and like
Okay. Yeah, smart.
play some tennis or whatever, you know, do some stuff that takes me out of like sitting in a plane or a train and being at a gig. Like, because if
Yeah.
you just do that, you know, it feels like you're in a rut. You do that for 2 weeks and it feels like, oh God, you know, I've made a bad decision with my life. So whatever I can do to break out of that, I think is good for the head.
Mm.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Just try and stay really positive, because that'll make the music better as well.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
we
And
toured
and
like,
and listen to music as
yeah,
well.
like on headphones, you mean like other people's music and stuff like yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, that kind of is another way of taking me away, you know,
Yeah.
transporting me away. I mean, it's
Yeah.
an obvious one.
No, it's important. Yeah. It's a tough one. It I remember one of my first tours, I thought it's so romantic, but I didn't figure out it's not so romantic, but you have to find this zone that you're talking about, kind of that you make it fun. I mean, obviously the music is fun, but the rest, sometimes can be tough, as you know, the traveling can
Yeah,
can be tough.
yeah. It can be a grind. It can be a
Yeah,
grind. Yeah, you've got to find the things that inspire
yeah,
you, um, and yeah, and try and keep it fresh.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Uh,
Because after you do it for a long time, um, you know, you got to love it. You got to love it.
oh
So
man,
you got to
yeah,
find ways to love it. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Uh, Matt, I wanted to ask you also, like, is James Farm still active? And how was that band actually formed? Like, because you are one of the kind of, how did the idea come for that band actually?
Well, the idea came from Josh,
Oh, okay.
Josh Redman, and I think uh, it kind of came from he heard Aaron Parks's record Invisible Cinema
Okay.
uh, and kind of loved it and wanted to do something in a similar vein, maybe. I mean, uh, I don't really. I'm actually. We've never really talked about this,
Oh, really? Oh,
but
wow. Okay.
this would be my assessment. I mean, it was Josh's idea, and he basically wanted to make a band with us, and the idea being everyone contributes music.
Yeah.
Um, and the idea being like this is stuff that we like to play, and that's influenced by the different things that we're into, and some of those things aren't necessarily straight ahead jazz.
Yeah.
And it was a project kind of the moment. And we're like, well, how about this tune, and how about this tune, and I think this will work. And they seem to have a kind of coherency to
Yeah.
them. And so that led to the band having the sound that it did.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that group
Yeah,
when it came out. Beautiful music. Yeah. What about
yeah,
your?
but it's not
It's
active.
Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you were still
Mhm.
gonna do something.
It
Yeah.
lies dormant. James
Yeah.
Farm lies dormant.
Okay. What about your story with Nils Wogram? I mean, I love Nils's playing, and You guys seem to go way, way back, and there's like this last Route 70 record that came out last year, and I love that stuff. And how did you hook up with Nils actually, and your story with him?
Yeah, well, yeah, that I mean that band has been going for 24 years
Yeah,
now.
that's
Unbelievable.
incredible. I mean, that's incredible.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We well, let's see. It's actually quite a few interlocking strands there. Hayden Chisholm and I go
Oh yeah.
back to the old country because he's from New Zealand too.
Oh yeah. Hayden is New Zealand.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So we knew each other when we were 16 back there, and he ended up moving to Europe and ended up in Cologne, going to the same music school as Niels and Jochen Rucker.
Oh yeah.
So he met them. Jochen moved to New York, and he had my number from Hayden, so he called me up. So we knew each other kind of in New York. I ended up subbing in Niels's previous quartet a couple of times, by recommendation of Jochen. So we knew each other from there. But there were these two gigs that Hayden put on in Cologne, I think in like 1999,
Wow.
in a little shitty basement. And one of them was with Niels and Jochen, myself, and this electronic musician, Jochen Bonus, who made like all kinds of cool, like crazy, like designed sounds. And yeah, the gigs were cool. They were great. And afterwards, Niels was like, I'm inspired. I want to make a band with you guys, without the electronic music, I guess. And then our first gig was kind of playing some old repertoire of Niels's, but it was at the Mers Festival in 2000.
Okay.
And then Niels, as he does, just kind of like goes away and just writes a repertoire of like 10 tunes in 2 weeks, which is this amazing ability that he has to like produce like a whole like set of music, a whole album's worth of music. And then we toured later that year, and you know, I mean that band stays together mostly because we're good friends. You know, like we just kind of like being on the road together, which is, you know, kind of important. So but yeah, the very first tour we did was like 21 gigs in 21 days.
Christ, man.
On like the Deutsche Bahn. Just like no rest. Because we were young. So it's chilled out a little bit since then. But yeah, I know, I think we like the music. Nils is a great band leader, you know, and we like being on the road. We like playing with each other. It's like it's really simple. But I mean, 24 years is it's kind of, it's wild.
It's quite rare.
Half our lives.
Quite rare, yeah.
Half our lives in one band, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, like, I think the band survives. That project survives because we don't play that much. You know, we'll do like one big tour a year, and maybe, you know, a recording like every 2 or 3 years, maybe, and then maybe another isolated thing.
And like, you do your own stuff, and then like come together. That's good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you look forward to getting together and having like your intense period, and then you kind of go off and do everything else, which is maybe like an understated way of keeping a project together, is maybe like don't play too much.
True.
I mean, you have to play a lot. Like there's no substitute for gigs in terms of like getting a really good band and getting a really good band sound and all that. But then thinking long term, you know, sometimes it's good to
definitely
take a break, take a lot of breaks from each other. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Matt, I just wanted to ask you one more thing, two more things. Like, I've read that you played with Wayne Shorter as well, and when was that, and what was the occasion? I mean, what was that like?
Oh yeah, well let's see. I got a call from Wayne's management that Patitucci his father-in-law had passed away.
Okay.
So he had to go back to New York, and so they called me to fill in, and I played this gig with Wayne's quartet in Portland, and it was as you can imagine, like a thrilling and wild experience, Yeah.
Was it
yeah.
easy to gel in with the band, with Brian and all those guys, or?
Well, I mean, I got to like the sound check, and Danilo just met me with this like thick bunch of like music and was like, we might play this, and then again we might not.
Yeah.
We might play this, and then if we do, it's going to only be from this bar from bar 9 to like bar 21, but we might not. And we eventually played free, or at least I did. But it was fantastic. I mean, like Wayne is like my idol. So
yeah,
it was incredible to get to do that with him.
Okay, yeah, fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Otherwise, well, what's still in the schedule for you for this year? I mean, what are the upcoming projects or tours or that you have lined up?
Well, let's see. I got more stuff with Nils in Europe. I have stuff with Dejan Terzic.
Oh yeah, you do. Okay, super.
And Tobias Meinhardt as well.
Yeah.
I just got back from Italy playing with Aaron Goldberg.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Got some stuff coming up with Billy Childs in the US.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, I play with this Mexican singer who's fantastic called Margos Herrera. And so we have things coming up in the United States and Mexico, some stuff with strings as well, with a string quartet and a string ensemble, which is really amazing, beautiful arrangements. So yeah, I love that project. Yeah, that's what I can remember at this stage.
Beautiful, man. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be around Slovenia, drop me a line. We'll get together for some wine or something like that. So
absolutely, I'll just turn up at your door like this.
Oh man.